Friendly greetings and good top of the morning to you. I'm going to answer your questions. Thank you so much. I know it was a short round at about 8 hours, but if you missed out, hopefully we'll do this again. Curiosities keep coming, and thank you to each and all of you who have asked. Let's get to the first question now. Yes, a perennial favorite, but I'll answer it anyway. How long since I was 3 years old? And I know later on I am asked how old I am. That's actually on my website. Deduce the clues. That's one that you gotta hunt around a little bit for. So, do I take some sort of drugs? Kind of drugs. That's sometimes the difference. Or I'm naturally crazy. It's the latter. It's funny, a friend long remarked ago that perhaps taking drugs would make me into a boring shell of a man. I'm just naturally this way. A lot of energy, which is good because it means the food that I'm eating is helping to sustain me, if you really think about it. Now we get into gear recommendations. Is that Pi and Company? Correct me if I mispronounce anything wrong. I'm notorious for it, or offering alternates. First thing that I caution with my gear recommendations is they're extremely eclectic and particular to me. If you have similar or maybe even the same tastes as me, if that's possible, then yeah, we'll get along great gear-wise. But some of my choices are just oddball, but they work beautifully for me, which is why they're my choices. So this microphone is a Zoom H4n, as Judd Play later remarks. Yes, and working on a $50 budget. I don't have any that I'm really hot about in that price frame. I recommend saving up. I also have a Samsung C01U. I believe they're actually the same parent company as Zoom. Part of it depends on the room environments too. Sometimes you want to invest in something like this helps. This little fuzzy thing helps prevent plosives, like unless you get really close. And this was slightly more, well, considerably more. I think it was like $250 at the time. I used a coupon though. I go to retailmenot.com and use coupons. But yeah, the cheaper ones I'm not really hot about, so I don't have a strong recommendation. Yes, the eternal happiness question. Pardon, let me get a drink here. Generic store brand, it'll do for now. Excuse me. So, I don't just keep myself so happy. I put myself in situations where there's a lot of things by environment, by choice, and by design that help me be happy. Like for instance, making music. Making music helps me be happy. My beloved wife helps me be happy. Answering questions makes me happy. So it's not one thing, but it's the connection and the continuum of all these things. One thing though I should definitely point out is negative stuff. Of course, I don't like to uselessly bash or flame, but I do have criticisms for behavior that is useless. For example, YouTube comments, not these ones, that detract from the enjoyment of a video because they get into a word war. For example, ones under electronic music video that talk about one genre and this is not techno, this is not trance, or this sucks, or this is so gay in a prerogative way. It's discouraging. It really is, especially to newcomer producers. So safely ignore that stuff and look at the stuff that, while critical, is useful, that will help benefit you and perhaps the other person who is issuing that criticism. And Gumball's Ghost. Yes, I do. Actually, oh, it's not here right now. I have a sleep mask. Sometimes I wear that, not while just performing per se, but the problem with composing music on a computer, one problem is when you become accustomed to a visual layout, you start to view things in terms of blocks. And sometimes that's not the case, because looking at a block, especially when it's all zoomed out, won't tell you about specific things like note density and really intuitive expression. You can see how the automation, the lines are on the screen, but that doesn't tell your ears the full story. So that's why sometimes, yes. And I like playing in the dark. It's very fun. I used to play Phantom of the Opera in the dark and give people a good scare laugh. That would have to be one word. Lucky Shotgun Pictures asks, the cool shirts, those come from Thailand mainly, and there are some which I got in Washington State going around and just looking for a neat. I like silk, I like tie-dyed designs, kind of hippy-dippy stuff. Oh, you're very welcome, Judd Play. Yeah, so ASIO, that's something more on the Windows side, and I'm mostly on Mac. So I previously, though, I noticed the driver was on Zoom's site. So if you seek that out, On the Mac side, I just use Core Audio, which is built in, and it's very nice and easy. I wish it could be more detailed help there. It's like the cases where I have that experience, I love to share it. And aside from that, of course, I think one of the greatest things about this handy recorder is you can have a built-in limiter. Some of the built-in effects are really neat, and that can help give you more of a professional, a boosted up, amplified sound. Pardon if there is noise moving that around. I do recommend, though, that as much as possible, this is useful as well if you're not doing mobile recording. As a computer interface, you notice I have it plugged in via USB. So if you have the opportunity to arrange your tracks on a computer digital audio workstation, I prefer Ableton Live. For more reasons I would go into, this keeps expanding, then do so. This has, I think, a 4-track kind of recorder. It's not all that flexible, and I don't really use that, no. Lucky Shotgun Pictures, aka Luke. I know I said I wouldn't get into Second Life questions, but this isn't a Second Life question per se. The answer concerns it. I met my wife in Second Life. I was stressed at work. We met at the Bear Info Hub Dream Lodge. It's a beautiful place, and she started talking to me and showing me things that she built. Very, very creative, and she was very responsive, paid a lot of attention to me, and I was like, this is really intriguing. That was a few years ago now. Wow, time flies. I'm in the USA. And yes, my age. So look that up on my site. Okay, professional audio. Unfortunately, there's not a, let me copy this or select this all, Thomas. First question, I don't have a boom mic that I really say I love, so I can't make a strong recommendation there. I don't know if anyone uses this as a boom mic. It's pretty nice. I don't know if you can rent one. I like this for several reasons. One, you can have it be portable like that. It's cool. You can attach it onto various things, and then you can hook it up as your computer audio interface. I know some people need way more inputs and outputs. I'm a simple guy here. And as for software combination, that software slash hardware, as explained in other videos, I love Ableton Live. I think it's really nice and easy. It's got a lot of sounds built in, more if you get the suite version. It's got a lot of things which you can use for hip hop and dance. Recently, I've really liked, if you're looking for a sample pack of drum machines, there is Drum Machines Collection Volume 1 by Wave Alchemy. And I'm really, really fond of that. I also have to disclaim they sent me some of their stuff, promos for free, gratis. But I really like a lot of their things. For bass lines, I've really liked Camel Audio's Alchemy recently. They've come up with a cheaper version, a player version. And I've liked Native Instruments Massive, which I've also showed demos of. It's great for those fat, funky bass lines. People ask me how to get such a big bass, and that is part of the story. Thank you for answering him. If anyone can help anyone out in the questions, things I don't know about, that's cool. I currently, Black Gnosis, I use soft synths for everything. That is true. Except for, of course, sampling in. I don't know if you count that. Making noises and recording them in and manipulating them. Previously, though, my studio was hardware dependent. I did have an Axis virus rack. Now, the current generation doesn't appeal to me so much for several reasons. One is listening to the sounds. I can't really distinguish and justify that price. Now, if it were for the hardware controls, then yes, that's part of it, or the audio interface, which is built into some models, yes. But currently, these hooked up to the computer work fine for me. In addition, I'm aware that in some cases, people refer to hardware as sounding better than software. I know this goes into an incredible amount of word wars, not so incredible when you consider most of that is unfortunately wasted. Sometimes it's not just the sound of the synthesizer, as it were, because a lot of digital ones, it's just really a computer on board anyway. And sometimes it's the digital to analog converters, the DACs in the back, that are the formative that to change the sound. So sometimes you can achieve something similar, and someone always goes, it's not the same. Of course, it's never the same. No, that's not what you're going for. You're going for something that, regardless of whether it's identical or not, pleases you. Maybe better, maybe worse. That's not going to please you as much. But definitely, my current setup, I listen to it, and it's cool with me. I'm open to looking at hardware synths that have more in the way of creative expression. I wish that the Yamaha CS80s control, the ribbon controller and things like that, some esoteric controllers, D-beams and things were more available, because that is the part of hardware synthesizer, the physical input into the computer. Like as we advance into the future, as we have better ways of dealing with VR than a clunky keyboard and It's my keyboard. And mouse will get more tactile, more nuanced, more immersive. So yeah, nothing striking me against. I'm not one of those, I hate that. I just use what works well for me. Simple. The first time I got into music would probably be Twinkle Little Star. So that's General's Lullaby. Classical music, certainly, as a youth. And then I got into synthesizers because I was like, well, my piano can basically only make one sound. I want to make more types of different sounds. It was a really logical, natural progression. One of curiosity. The reason why I got into classical, my parents and my teachers at the time. So my taste has expanded in some directions, refined in others. I tend to love melodic stuff that has some experimental techniques. So the familiarity and the alien at the same time. And you'll find that reflected in my dream journal and others. Sometimes pillowy, is that pronounced right? Sometimes backmasking is intentional. Sometimes it's a coincidence. It really is. So it really depends on the specific song. Now, what I find funny is sometimes when someone records their voice, okay, they just record their voice bare, and then they play it back, and then they learn how to sing it like it's backwards like that, and then they flip that and reverse again. So they actually sang it in reverse phonetically. That's kind of tricky. I'm actually trying to think of an instance of that. I can't at the moment. If you know, leave a comment, please. Tilko Nuts, thank you for your 4 questions. 4 is my luckiest number, perhaps. Master and produce my instruments so well. Of course, that's quite an involved question. I'd have to say that there are specific tools. It comes with a lot of experience, with a lot of listening to other people's music and putting your rendered mixes in a mix with other composers and producers, because then if you hear yours and it sounds like part of the chain of similar things, or even punchier in some cases, then hey, you know, you've got that part licked. But it's never a final destination. Not to sum up the horror movie, it's incremental. A big part of it is there are a couple tools which I'll point out in addition to Ableton Live's own dynamics processor, which I use for compression. I'm really fond right now of Voxengo Elephant as a limiter. Limiter is important as the so-called last step in the chain because you can boost your signals and make them really punchy. So Elephant is fantastic. I've tried perhaps a dozen limiters, and out of all of them, I've really been fond of Elephant. Over time, it's gotten even better with some of the new algorithms. Sometimes it can be quite subtle, and my ears aren't suited for that. But the fact you're telling me this, it's a learning experience, and that's one reason why I enjoy having these Q&A sessions, because then I can learn from your observations and, of course, YouTube comments in general on my channel. As for production of instruments, the other plugin I was going to mention is Bias. It's called Bias, B-I-A-S, RepliQ. And what it does is you can listen to another song, another sort of even a solo track, like a kick track, because you asked me about those punchy kicks in question 3. And that's a part of it. So even if you start out with a relatively lame kick, it matches the spectrum, the equalization, and you can tweak it a little bit afterwards. It's a little bit fiddly, so not the best thing to do a conventional EQ, but it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. And things like this sometimes are underrated. I was looking around for other people who had similar experiences. I got into it in part because I have hyperacusis, which means I can't hear correctly to begin with. My own frequency graph is like messed up. I don't hear as most other people hear. So a computer-assisted tool like this, it's kind of bionic, man, I know, helps a lot. So those are 2, and the tools aren't the only thing. A lot of it, you have to fuse the tools with your listening. Production of instruments, of course, one thing that I learned from several producers, including BT a while ago, but it's a great tip, is if you have your bass and your kick and the low-end stuff, the stuff that you really want to have consider the bottom, fill out the bottom end, then shelve the other elements at about 120 to 150 hertz. That way, even though they may sound kind of thin on their own, in a mix with the kick, they'll sound good. And of course, sidechain compression for the kick also help make space. I don't do that all the time. Sometimes I'll use a kick that is in the higher frequency, like its dominant frequency will be around 100 hertz perhaps, and underneath that I may even trim a bit of the kick, shelve a bit of the kick, so that the bass line can really sit nicely. I like to listen to I know I'm going on, I hope this is helpful to you. I like to listen to the kick and the bass line sometimes just isolated by themselves, nothing else. Because if they can play well, sometimes it's deceptive. You have everything in the mix and, oh, they sound good, but you play them by themselves during the breakdown section of the song. And you're like, that's not working out. So it helps to isolate, to solo a track or combinations of tracks. And yeah, I'll definitely do more tutorials as things mature. Sometimes I know my means can be very MacGyverish and very scrappy and resourceful, and they're not the proper protocol, but they sound great. So and as a result, I strive to find more elegant ways of putting them together. And then, yeah, even this piano right now is going through a mastering chain, which I may reveal more of in the future as I continue to develop that. It's not because I am secretive, and never is. Well, almost never, if you believe in conspiracy theories. It's largely, though, because I like to share things that they do have a rawness, they do have an edge, but at the same time, they're usable. So they don't elicit more questions that are because of misunderstanding rather than intent. And VSTs I use the most. Well, I have the Native Instruments, the complete package, version 5, not the 6 one. That's one of them. I mentioned a few other VSTs that I like. I really like Audio Ease's speakerphone for all sorts of effects. Sugar Bites Electrics, and their artillery ones are wonderful for a little effects spice. I also like the Fab Filter ones, Fab Filter Twin. Timeless is a lovely delay. Let me tell you about a recent acquisition I got, which is subtle. You can hear it on here at the very end, though. Just the trail. That's Redline Reverb from 112 decibels. I believe that's the company name. It's a really, really gorgeous reverb. It's a recent acquisition. I was thinking Ableton Live's reverb has some fun effects, but it wasn't entirely realistic or authentic for more acoustic instruments. So I decided to get Redline Reverb. Reverb is essential because if you're going to gel your tracks together, if you're going to have spaces that you want to explore, and I often close my eyes and imagine, where am I traveling now? Redline Reverb is gorgeous for that. So I would highly recommend that. Sometimes I look for sales on kvraudio.com, look in the marketplace, and very cool people there who know tons more than me, and I just love learning. The fastest way to learn piano, there is no, unfortunately, fastest way. There are effective ways. As for improvisation, I suggest you spend time every day. You spend time until you feel bored. For me, that can be several hours. That you learn, that you do not listen to people who say you can't do it. That will speed you up. Discouragement will slow you down, really. There's nothing like creative block that comes through depression. It's the saddest thing. But I'd certainly say if you're searching for a good teacher, mesh with that style with a good Mr. Miyagi or Mrs. Miyagi, as it will. Improv largely comes through every day. That's what I do. Every day, figuring out something fun to play. See, even a simple thing like that. Just a simple thing like that can just develop 2 notes, can make a big difference if you see my Philip Glass video. Thank you for answering and helping out. Brian William Green, you may be referring to the sort of approach that Live has by its name. So Ableton Live, fascinating in that you have both the recorded view and the live view. It's a very fresh approach instead of the conventional environment that is optimized for, well, you're going to record a track, but you're not necessarily going to jam with this. You're not going to rearrange the parts. And I don't use live really. I will in the future if should that opportunity opened up. But a lot of it has to do with the workflow. I'm really fond of how Live, not only can you reskin it to have colors, I like the oak theme. It really works with the way I have ideas and want to capture them spontaneously. Some digital audio workstations make it a surprising chore to record something and get it in there. I like how it's relatively minimalist. The devices all have a consistent UI. And I know you can do cool things like making a guitar pedal look very rusty and vintage in Logic Pro. It's like every other DAW right now is getting guitar stomp box effects. It's a funny trend. But with Ableton, I like that it really doesn't impose on me. Now, it does crash more than I would like it to at present, unfortunately. Some things like moving a track. And there was a bug wherein audio unit plugins could suddenly crash while initializing. And thanks to Christian Klein, I think that's his name at Ableton, for helping me with that. I wish I had found out there was a sticky post in the forum months ago That would have saved me. And I will do. I have done some videos with Ableton. I will do more. Maybe I should dissect some of the Dream Journal tracks so you could see how I put them together. It's really like sewing a quilt for me. Arranging music is like you take different parts and then you have a layer, and then this one fits with that one. You weave it, you stitch it together. It's beautiful and it's really relaxing, even the crazy, more up-tempo tracks. But yeah, by far and large, Ableton, it feels elegant. I know some of it is marketing and branding. They're quite savvy about that. And I have tried other things, other DAWs, and they weren't to my liking. So I never like to get in a war of what is best, because there is no such global best. It's what works for you. You can take recommendations from others who have similar tastes. So if you feel yourself like other things I like that you like, just like music, right? Someone likes several bands, the same ones that you do, maybe you'll like more bands that they also like. The most recent movie, well, do we count TV movies? I enjoy watching Caprica every week. It's wonderful. As you may have heard, my rendition of the theme, I got a reply from Bear McCreary, which was lovely, lovely, lovely. And aside from that, I watched frequently asked questions about time travel. I am a ginormous fan of Anna Faris. Now, some people say she is typecast for playing this doe-eyed, ditzy blonde in various movies, or black hair Cindy Campbell in the classic scary movies, which are genius. But I enjoy this movie. She has such a way to convey facial expressions, and she was starring alongside some English lads. And it had some clever situations in it. I wouldn't say I would rewatch it, but frequently asked questions about time travel. And before that, there was one Smiley Face with Anna Faris as well, where she is high all day. And that cracked me up till the ending. Oh, I'm not going to spoil that. And so external instrument, it depends what you want to do. Now, I hate to put that as a placeholder, so let me explain further. It's helpful to have an external controller like this so you can play instead of having to tap notes on the keyboard, which can be very slow and it's not velocity sensitive. It can help to have, some cases, a beatbox with pads like this, drum pads. Ableton Live works even if you don't have an external controller plugged in. There are things like the Korg Nano controllers. Look at this one. This is small. I use this as well. There is a nano pad that has little drum pads and a nano keys. And I know, is it Akai? Oh, I always screw that one up too. But they are smaller, they are affordable, and you can make music on the go. But I do recommend having a source of expression. Velocity sensitivity is so important if you want to breathe and inject feel, because when you have dynamic differences between something soft and something loud, boom, 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 it adds so much flavor and color and range to your music. Just like different pitches, you wouldn't always just play the same note all in a row. So you have different like that. Oh, now I wonder how you got your name, Blacklist Smelly Fro. I've seen you comment several times, and I think it's a very catchy name, a very memorable name. Why don't I play guitar? Perhaps a better question is, more apt question is, when will I learn to play guitar? There's no particular reason striking out against me aside from focus and proverbial time. I think also finding a guitar that is merged with a synthesizer in some ways, like the Line 6 Variacs, they look very tempting to me. But at the same time, I'm not sure if I could spend enough energy with that at the moment. It's something I'm definitely open to in the future. I have great admiration for so many guitarists, like Satriani, for example. I really, really love his style with his crazy solos. And how to be as awesome as me. Is that one of those things where I just can't teach it? I have to live by example, and someone by nature of watching the collective, some of that. There are certain tips, some steps that I can take. So okay, I'll expand a little more on that. I'm not going to cheat you out of an answer. Vegetarian diets, I think if that's what you enjoy eating and you find it's contributing to your health, I do eat meat, but I do understand the importance of having good fiber and good fruits and such. It's very, very important. So yeah, there's some, is it pescatarians? Allegedly Steve Jobs in the past anyway, who eat fish but not other kinds of meat because they think fish and some seafood is healthier. I do like my sushi very much, but I think if whatever you eat, you're going to be healthy. You're going to be almost going to hey, this is Brule's rule. And my wife, there are pictures of her, and perhaps more in the future. There are pictures of her on her Flickr stream, which is linked to from Nine, and her name Ravenel. There are pictures of us. Yeah, I would say that she's not as camera overt as I am. Yes, I do have Asperger's syndrome. Normal. That's very nice of you, because I don't get that a lot. Quite frankly, I'm weird. I'm crazy, as you may have seen. Now, being approachable and likable, there's several things which I've learned over time. One is not to hold back and ever think that pop culture is beneath you. If there's things that you gravitate to that, as I say, if you like them, then go for it. It's like when some of the early Britney Spears songs came out. I know someone who thinks that is a guilty pleasure. They would self-censor, but to me, that's the wrong thing to do. So I talked about my great love for those songs, not just her vocals, but the production. I thought it's very punchy. And as a result, I was, I said the word punchy. Let me go back here. Pardon for the detraction. Rich Punchy Kicks, I would recommend a good source to, not just ripping off other people's kicks from their records, but I mentioned Wave Alchemy. They make so many punchy kicks. They give great collections away for free, which are effectively a time and tested way to get those in your productions and to see. So look at Wave Alchemy, combine that with Voxengo Elephant to punch those up, and use the bias Replicue. Replicue sounds like a replicant. And back to Blacklist Smelly Fro. So different when around others. No, I'm pretty much, unless I have different energy levels, sometimes I just like, I'm gonna chillax and be low maintenance mode instead of all up in someone's face about things. But I'm really laid back most of the time. Sometimes I'm quite laid back and intense at the same time. That's what I find. But often with pop culture, something that really interests you, being able to relate to other people. So even if you have something that is obscure, try to find someone else that likes the same things. It's pretty easy on the internet. Just put a call out. And I think that a big part of what has helped me, despite having Asperger's syndrome, Asperger or Aspie, or so many funny words. I think it's being relabeled as autistic spectrum. A big part of it for me, really, though, is being able to share those interests. Because some people, they make such a big, bad deal out of obsessions. They're like, well, this interest is unhealthy. And it's true, there are interests in this world which are unhealthy. But there's a lot of things that you can get into that you glean so much energy, so much intensity, so much joy out of, and you want to share that with other people. So I think a difference between me and, say, a typical, if there is such a thing, I don't think there is. There's a real spectrum, like it's called, of the condition of people with Asperger's syndrome, something that has made me different over time, not when I was younger, but being able to talk more about my interests. And I get laughed at about it on occasion. Hey, that's fine. I get laughed with that even more. But likable, that's a unanimous thing. Thank you. Being able to share is important. Headphone hair, yes. I love Stargate SG-1. I haven't really watched Atlantis. I haven't really watched Universe. But SG-1, I've watched every episode with my wife. I love the camaraderie. I love the characters. I think it's so wonderful how O'Neill, Carter, Jackson, and Tilk, and of course later on there's Val Duran. I like her a lot too. And I didn't really see Farscape, her role in that, the actress's role. But yeah, I think I haven't watched Universe recently. I watched the first few episodes, but you know what didn't get me into it was, okay, I understand the character conflict. A large part of the problem was I found Rush so likable for pissing everyone off, and the rest of the crew, I found them so incompetent. I was like, well, not everyone, that's not true, but most of the people. It just made the military side of it look so half-assed compared to what O'Neill set out to do. And of course, it's less optimistic overall. There is humor. I'm aware of that. I don't like to generalize unfairly, not having seen the latest episodes. But the first few 4 or 5 that I saw, I kind of grimaced. And it was a different tone. And sometimes I can appreciate that in a show. Like, for instance, I've watched all the Star Trek series except for Enterprise FN. I will look for that variance. But to me, a big part of it was the friendship, the togetherness, and even the conflicts they had. Because remember when Daniel got really mad at Teal'c for killing his then ex-wife, putting her out of misery because of the gold parasite in her. Things like that, and conflicts between Daniel and O'Neill in early ones, or even the playful banter between Carter and O'Neill. So memorable characters is a big part. After this, I think with the universe, for what I saw, I could really get into what Rush was doing, but most of the rest of the crew, I couldn't. But I know the actors, they're probably saying that they're doing their darndest, and no doubt it has its detractors and its attractors. Can I say it's not for me? The two keyboards that I have, this one is an M Audio Keystation 88ES. This is also listed on torley.com/FAQ. This is a Novation 49SL Mark II. Reason why I have both, because I know this gets asked, they just have such different approaches. This is aftertouch, which means you can press down a key, press it down even more, which is great with things like a CS80 patch in sounds. You add aftertouch expression. And the pitch band is different. It's got a lot more knobs and sliders. I don't use these so much really compared to my little, it's just convenient to have this here on the desk. But this for 88 keys and more pianistic stuff. I like those big bass sounds. So yeah, those are the two in the control. Ableton Live, which is running in the background. How do I feel about furries? Well, I'd have to feel pretty dandy, because I do have a fursona. Haven't worn it in a while. I actually have several. If you look back early Second Life pictures of me, there's me as Torlop the bunny. I've had several since. Now, as for a full-fledged, furry, pardon, lifestyle, I think it's wonderful to express interest like that, or like a Star Trek fan and have conventions and to share those interests. And I haven't been to Furnation in a long time. Maybe have to drop by. Yeah. So yeah, when I start playing, I answered that before. Complete layman, that's always really hard. I can always tell you how I got into it. Classical piano lessons, very formal and structured, and then I wanted to rebel, so I started exploring synthesizer music. But I definitely believe that dedication every day, it can't be something you do like once a week or month. You're not going to get really proficient with that. You have to put your hours in, not just because of the sake of time, but because of experience. You have to be familiar. You have to listen to so much music and know what is out there. And there's always so much stuff you're not going to know, but the stuff that you really like, that really attracts you, be drawn to that and pull it in like a tractor beam. And by all means, even plunking down and playing random notes, it's funny how much that can sound like professional avant-garde music sometimes. It's just a weird world. And finally, Cool Rider. Let's see. Could you do a tutorial on those things? Yeah. So faking Bach, I was implying Baroque chords. I will show you this right now since I have MIDI keys on. Faking Bach is like these chords. I'll play with one hand. So it's a chord progression used in a lot of Baroque stuff. No, it's not Final Countdown. I know I did a weird variation. So that's one approach. And of course, that doesn't account for Bach's counterpoint, like in the left hand, it's like. And sometimes he's throwing a trill, like trill. It's kind of run. kind of sleepy, but waking up with that. And classical depends on each composer. Now, someone always gets really mad. They're like, oh, you can't fake them. Whatever, you can. Don't be such a snob, I said to them. Look, it helps you learn and appreciate the great arts of the structure of how things are put together. Let me do a bit more Bach, actually, now I'm in the mood. It's like... So just really rough there, but the big part is like you repeat phrases in the left hand and right hand. It's like... Yeah, I'm just improvising that. And classical is like the Mozart kind of chords. Like, you could do a lot with that. So much mileage out of like practicing. Now the funny thing is, this is a semi-weighted keyboard. It's not heavy like a real piano, and it's easier to do trills and runs that way, like more like an organ. Chord progressions are a big part of it. It's like a lot of songs, a lot of play something like that in left hand and change to right, of course it's going to sound similar. Like, that. Oh, I know. Sorry, that went off. I wish there was a MIDI keys that had all the notes. And so let me do the tutorial right now for you. Cool Rider. Yes, those scale rollovers. Is that like a glissando walkover? So glissandos, it's pretty much easy in dragging on older pianos, on real pianos. You want to avoid lacerating yourself. That can and does happen if the keys are chipped. It's not a nice experience. Sometimes you can use the whole brunt of your hand. Sometimes you gotta look for a target point of where you're gonna go. So transitions, like that. If you know that's your target point. So, like that. And there's another thing I do. Okay. Oh, let me go down a bit. So try those notes over and over. Are you bored yet? You keep doing that pattern and you roll it down like this. All white notes. So it's like... That's one of my signatures. You can come out with beautiful stuff. I'm gonna play a little bit higher, but you know what it is. 5 2 1 2 1 2 5. It's hard to do on the black notes. You can't really because there's gaps in between, but. You can start on any white notes. Just 2 1 2 5. That's one of my. I need a name for that. There's another motif I use called "Smile in Her Eyes." It goes like this. I should move my chair. It's inhibiting. So that's like. Yeah, and those rolly ones are basically a matter of, so knowing a chord, like you got C, so let's do it basically, C, right? You're like, and you roll it a bit. So instead of that, you do this. And then from left to right, if you have both hands, you can alternate, so you know. And then you can play forward time. And you just do it faster and faster. Like sometimes it's easier. It's easiest to link like that. I find it's like, so it's like. Just like that. And you just practice. See, this is the kind of. So I'm a big fan of arpeggios that way, real arpeggios. That requires some agility because you gotta flip, it's like a gymnast. Sometimes I like to do the octaves in the right hand, it's like. Songs. So now another powerful thing is to sometimes do broken chords and then change them to fixed chords, like for example. So that's basically. Exercise machine. If you think of playing this just like, and don't get bored by doing your scales, because remember, scales are like little atoms that you put in a bigger song and stuff. So your piano teacher's like, do your scales, do them, and learn just different tonalities, because all these are building blocks. You're gonna have a hard time putting together a Lego castle without understanding the individual parts. With fingering, I'm sometimes unconventional. I tend to be more of a loose rubato style player instead of going to a rigid tempo map, which is so funny, which is on electronic music. It's nice to have that firm kick drum or something, and the rest is like free form. wondering too, some people have asked, it's going to come up again, what piano sounds do I use? This is called the Braunschweig Upright by Imperfect Samples. Look that up. And Matt Stediford or Stediford, his name should come up. It sounds very homegrown. It has a lot of character. It's not the greatest for big dynamic classical pieces. Not meant for that though. But I did some of the solo piano, actually Halidium, which came after. Earlier solo piano stuff was on Native Instruments acoustic, and now I'm name dropping stuff. But this is a rich tonality. I love the bass drop. Pardon, got a little distracted there. So thank you so much for the questions and answers. Let's take a quick look if anyone just did happen to ask. No, okay. Well, we'll continue on the next round. But yeah, I hope that helps you. In the meantime, keep watching my videos and look at my blog at torley.com for the latest music that I'm doing. You can hear theory put into practice. Have a most creative day. This is Torley signing off for now.